Transport in plants and animals. Meaning and importance of transport systems. This is the movement of water and mineral salts from the soil to other parts of the plant and food materials from the leaves to the rest of the plant. Most single-celled organisms are very small, hence have a very high SA to volume ratio, hence substance rapidly get in and out of the cell by simple diffusion. E.g. mosses and liverworts. Multicellular organisms are big, hence have a small SA to volume ratio, thus they need a special cue by move substances into and out of the cells. Absorption of water and mineral salts. In higher plants, the transport function is carried out by a specialized transport system known as the vascular bundle. It comprises of A. Xylem transports water and mineral salts from the soil. B. Phloem transports dissolved food substances such as sugars from the leaves. Internal structure of root and root hairs. Functions of roots. I. For anchorage, hold the plant firmly in the soil. E. Absorption of water and mineral salts from the soil. E. As storage organs of some plants, e.g. carrots. IV. As breathing roots, gaseous exchange, in some plants. Internal structure of a root. Piliferous layer. This is a special epidermis of young roots whose cells give rise to root hairs. Its cells are thin-walled to allow passage of water and mineral salts. As the root tissues mature, a less permeable suberized epidermis replaces the piliferous layer. Root cap. It covers the apex of the root. It consists of simple parenchyma cells that protect the growing part, apical meristem, of the root tip as it is pushed past soil particles. Cells of root cap are relatively impermeable to water and solutes. NB roots of aquatic plants lack root caps because they grow suspended in water. Epidermis. It's the outermost layer of cells that protect the inner tissues. The layer is one cell thick to reduce the distance over which water and mineral salts pass. Some epidermal cells are modified to form root hairs. Cortex. Tissue found between epidermis and endodermis made up of loosely packed, thin-walled parenchyma cells. Endodermis. It's a layer of surrounding the vascular bundles. It's characterized by rectangular-shaped cells, starch grains, hydrolyzed to release energy. Many mitochondria. Root pressure is thought to develop within the endodermis. Casparian strip. Has an impervious deposit on the radial and cross walls. Endodermis controls the amount of water and mineral salts entering into the vascular bundles. Pericycle. It's a layer of cells found between endodermis and vascular bundles. Gives rise to lateral roots. Xylem. Comprises of vessel and tracheids elements. It transports water and mineral salts from the soil. Phloem transports dissolved food substances such as sugars from the leaves to the rest of the plant. Comparison between monocotyledonous root and dicotyledonous root. Dicotyledonous root. Xylem occupies the center. Xylem forms a star shape. Phloem is found between the two rays of the star. Pith absent. Monocotyledonous root. Xylem and phloem are arranged to form a ring. Xylem tissue alternates with the phloem tissue. Pith present. Root hairs. They are modified outgrowth of epidermal cells. They are numerous. Long and slender to provide a large surface area through which absorption of water and mineral salts take place. They have numerous mitochondria to supply energy for active transport. They have a thin cell wall which ensures rapid movement of materials. Cell vacuole has high solute concentration to maintain a high osmotic pressure to absorb water. Cell vacuole is large to store absorbed water, and salts have short lifespan but are continuously replaced by new ones that develop nearer to the tip. Stem. Functions to support and expose the leaves and flowers to the environment, to conduct water and mineral salts from the roots to the rest of the plant, to conduct manufactured foods from the leaves to the rest of the plant. Other functions: storage of food and water in potato stem tubers for gaseous exchange, e.g. lenticels. Perennation, survival of perennial and biennial plants from one year to the next by vegetative means. Substance in the stem are transported within the vascular tissue. Comparison between monocotyledonous stem and dicotyledonous stem. Dicotyledonous stem. Vascular bundles arranged to form a ring have a central pith xylem located on the inside, while the phloem on the outside. Cambium present between the xylem and phloem. Monocotyledonous stem. Vascular bundles arranged randomly, scattered cambium absent NB. Most tissues in the root and stem are similar because these tissues are continuous from the root into the stem. Common tissues to both root and stem are epidermis. Cells are elongated, outer walls are covered by a waxy cuticle that prevents excessive loss of water through evaporation, protects inner tissues from infection and mechanical injury. Cortex, made up of various types of cells, i.e. Collenchyma cells. They're angular, they have thick cellulose cell walls to provide support to the root. Parenchyma cells. Spherical in shape, have thin cell walls. Cells are loosely packed, creating intercellular spaces filled with air. Cortex act as storage tissue for water and food. They may have chloroplasts to carry out photosynthesis, hence called chlorenchyma. Sclerenchyma. Their walls are thickened by deposition of lignin in a process known as linifications. It serves as a strengthening tissue. Pith. It's the central part of the stem. It consists of the parenchyma cells that store water and food substances. In some stems, the pith may be hollow. Absorption of water. The soil particles are usually surrounded by a film of water. Root hair cells absorb water from the soil by osmosis. The cell sap in the vacuole of the root hair cell has high concentration of salts and sugars, hence it's hypertonic to the water found between the soil particles. Due to this concentration gradient, water molecules move by osmosis from the soil through the semi-permeable membrane of the root hair cells into the cell sap. The root hair cell sap becomes more dilute relative to the adjacent cortex cells. As a result, water moves by osmosis into the adjacent cortex cells and their osmotic pressure is lowered relative to the inner cortex cells, which draw water by osmosis. Water passes through successive cortex cells and through the endodermis to the xylem by osmosis. The endodermis actively pumps ions into the xylem vessels, thus enhancing uptake of water into the xylem vessels by osmosis and creating root pressure. The root hair cells will take up water as long as their concentration of salts is higher than that in the soil. Active uptake of mineral salts. The soil water contains dissolved mineral salts which plants require for the growth and proper functioning. The concentration of cell sap in root hairs is greater than that in the soil, hence enter the root hairs against the concentration gradient. This process requires the use of energy, therefore referred to as active transport. Active transport involves substances known as carriers which combine with mineral ions and then carry them across the plasma membrane into the cell. After absorption, the mineral salts move into the xylem vessels at the center of the root, then carried up the stem into the leaves. Factors that affect the absorption of mineral salts. Metabolic inhibitors. These are chemical substances that prevent metabolic activities from taking place. They prevent the release of energy, thus active transport does not take place, e.g. cyanide. Temperature. Low temperature reduces the rate at which active transport takes place. Increase in temperature up to the optimum speeds up the rate of chemical reaction. High temperatures denature the enzymes. Oxygen concentration. Oxygen is used in inoxidation of substrates that yield energy for use in the active uptake of mineral salts. Transpiration. Definition of transpiration. It's the process by which plants lose water in the form of water vapor in the atmosphere. The structure of the leaf. Role of leaf in transpiration. Water gets into the leaves through the xylem tissue. Water leaves the xylem and enters the cells of spongy mesophyll by osmosis. Water diffuses into the substomatal air spaces in the form of vapor. The concentration of water molecules is higher in the air spaces than in the atmosphere. Water diffuses out through the stomata into the atmosphere. Movement of water through a leaf. Types of transpiration. Stomatal transpiration. This is the loss of water in the form of water vapor through the stomata. It accounts for 80 to 90% of the total transpiration in plants. Most stomata occur on the leaves but may also occur on the epidermis of young herbaceous stems. Cuticular transpiration. This is the loss of water in the form of water vapor through the cuticle. In plants with thick cuticles, the loss is negligible. Lenticular transpiration. This is the loss of water in the form of water vapor through the lenticels. Lenticels are areas with loosely fitted cells on woody stems. The loss of water is negligible. Forces involved in transportation of water and mineral salts. The structure of the leaf. Forces involved in transportation of water and mineral salts. Transpiration pull. Process by which water moves up the xylem due to evaporation of water in the leaf. It enables a stream of water to move from the roots up the leaves. Energy from the sun causes evaporation of water, increasing the diffusion gradient between the atmosphere and the mesophyll cells, which leads to water vapor diffusing into the atmosphere. The mesophyll cells draw water from the xylem. The water from the xylem is replaced by a continuous column of water known as transpiration stream moving up the roots. Cohesion and adhesion forces. Water molecules attract one another in such a way that they always stick together. The forces that keep them together are referred to as cohesion force. Also, water molecules are attracted to the walls of the container in which the water is contained by a force referred to as adhesion force. The cohesive and adhesive forces in very thin columns can be very high and not easily broken. These forces maintain a continuous and an uninterrupted water column in the xylem vessels up the trees. Capillarity. It's the tendency of water to rise in very narrow tubes. The lumen of xylem tracheids and vessels is very narrow, and this enables water to rise by capillarity. Root pressure. It's the force that pushes water absorbed from the soil to move up the stem from the root. The energy used to develop root pressure originates from the endodermal cells. Cells of endodermis actively secrete mineral salts into the xylem. The osmotic pressure of the xylem content is increased, thereby encouraging water movement. When the stem of a plant is cut, water oozes out from the cut stem. Root pressure can only raise water to a height of about 1 meter, hence if a plant is growing in soil with little water, the maximum height that the root pressure will raise water will be less than 1 meter. Importance of transpiration. Replace water lost through the leaves. Aid in transportation of water and mineral salts. Cools the plant. Helps in the removal of excess water, especially in aquatic plants. Causes wilting. This is beneficial when a plant cannot obtain enough water to replace that lost by the plant through transpiration. Responsible for turgor in plants. Factors affecting transpiration rate. Structural factors. They are related to the morphology of the plant, e.g. roots. Plants with extensive root system have a high rate of transpiration than those with few roots. Extensive roots absorb more water, hence more is available in the substomatal spaces. Leaf size. Large leaves have a large surface area over which transpiration takes place, hence high rate of transpiration. Leaf structure. Cuticle. A thick cuticle reduces the rate of transpiration. The cuticle in most cases is waxy. Wax reflect away the sunlight, hence lower temperatures in the leaf. Wax is also waterproof, hence reducing rate of transpiration. Stomata. Number of stomata. The fewer the number of stomata, the lower the rate of transpiration. Position of stomata. The sun shines directly on the upper surface of leaves, hence increasing the rate of vaporization, thus high water loss. Stomata on the lower surface are sheltered from the sun's rays, hence lower water loss. Sunken stomata. When the stomata are sunken, water vapor accumulates in the substomatal air spaces, thus it's not exposed to moving air, hence reducing the rate of transpiration. Leaf fall. During periods of drought, some plants such as broadleaf deciduous trees shed their leaves to reduce the surface area for water loss. In some species of grass, the aerial shoot dries up to ground level. Hairy leaves. In some plant, leaves are covered with hairs or scales. These trap a layer of still moist air on the surface of the leaves, thus reducing transpiration. Environmental factors. Temperature. High temperature increases the capacity of the atmospheric air to hold more water vapor. High temperature increases the internal temperature of the leaf, which in turn increases the latent heat of vaporization, therefore enhancing evaporation from the leaf cells. Humidity. It's the amount of water vapor in the atmosphere. The humidity difference between the inside and the outside of the leaf is known as saturation deficit, and it determines the rate of water loss from the leaf. In dry weather, the saturation deficit is high, hence increasing rate of transpiration. In high humidity, the saturation deficit if low, hence decreasing rate of transpiration. Under such conditions, some plants secrete droplets of water through specialized pores called hydrothodes. This process of water loss is called guttation and is common in hydrophytes, plants growing in wet habitats. Wind. Wind carries water vapor as fast as it diffuses out of the leaves through the stomata. This prevents the air around the leaves from being saturated with water vapor. This helps to maintain a high diffusion gradient between the inside and the outside of the leaf. When the air is still, the area around the leaf soon becomes saturated with water vapor. Diffusion of water vapor from the leaf surface is low, leading to low rate of transpiration. Light intensity. The stomata of most plants open fully during daylight hours when the light intensity is high. This brings the substomatal air into direct contact with external environment. The water vapor therefore diffuses out at a higher rate than in dim light when the stomata are partially closed. Atmospheric pressure. The lower the atmospheric pressure, the higher the rate of evaporation. At high altitudes, the atmospheric pressure is very low, hence plants growing there lose a lot of water due to high rate of transpiration. Most of them have adaptations to prevent excessive water loss. Availability of water. When there is adequate amount of water in the soil, water is absorbed and conducted to all the cells. The mesophyll cells in the leaves become moist, thus more water will diffuse into the intercellular spaces, increasing the diffusion gradient. More water is lost to the atmosphere through transpiration. Structure and function of xylem. Xylem comprises of xylem vessels and tracheids. Xylem vessels. They are hollow tubes. They are made of dead cells placed end to end. Walls thickened with lignin to prevent them from collapsing as water is being transported up the plant. The hollow part, lumen, provides passage for substances. Xylem walls have perforations which form simple pits. The pits on the xylem vessels permit the passage of water in and out of the lumen into the neighboring cells. Tracheid elements have tapering or chisel-shaped ends. Walls thickened with lignin have tiny pores known as pits or perforations. The pits on the side walls allow lateral water to the cells surrounding the xylem. This makes tracheids less efficient in conducting water than vessels. Factors affecting transpiration. A. Structural factors. 1. Roots. Plants with extensive root system have a high rate of transpiration than those with few roots. 2. Leaf size. Large leaves have a large surface area over which transpiration takes place, hence high rate of transpiration. 3. Leaf structure. A. Cuticle. A thick cuticle reduces the rate of transpiration. The cuticle in most cases is waxy. Wax reflect away the sunlight, hence lower temperatures in the leaf. Wax is also waterproof, hence reducing rate of transpiration. B. Stomata. Number of stomata. The fewer the number of stomata, the lower the rate of transpiration. Position of stomata. The sun shines directly on the upper surface of leaves, hence increasing the rate of vaporization, thus high water loss. Stomata on the lower surface are sheltered from the sun's rays, hence lower water loss. Sunken stomata. When the stomata are sunken, water vapor accumulates in the substomatal air spaces, thus it's not exposed to moving air, hence reducing the rate of transpiration. C. Hairy leaves. In some plant, leaves are covered with hairs or scales. These trap a layer of still moist air on the surface of the leaves, thus reducing transpiration. Environmental factors. 1. Temperature. High temperature increases the capacity of the atmospheric air to hold more water vapor. High temperature increases the internal temperature of the leaf, which in turn increases the latent heat of vaporization, therefore enhancing evaporation from the leaf cells. 2. Humidity. It's the amount of water vapor in the atmosphere. The humidity difference between the inside and the outside of the leaf is known as saturation deficit, and it determines the rate of water loss from the leaf. In dry weather, the saturation deficit if high, hence increasing rate of transpiration. In high humidity, the saturation deficit if low, hence decreasing rate of transpiration. Under such conditions, some plants secrete droplets of water through specialized pores called hydrothodes. This process of water loss is called guttation and is common in hydrophytes, plants growing in wet habitats. 3. Wind. Wind carries water vapor as fast as it diffuses out of the leaves through the stomata. This prevents the air around the leaves from being saturated with water vapor. This helps to maintain a high diffusion gradient between the inside and the outside of the leaf. When the air is still, the area around the leaf soon becomes saturated with water vapor. Diffusion of water vapor from the leaf surface is low, leading to low rate of transpiration. 4. Atmospheric pressure. The lower the atmospheric pressure, the higher the rate of evaporation. At high altitudes, the atmospheric pressure is very low, hence plants growing there lose a lot of water due to high rate of transpiration. Most of them have adaptations to prevent excessive water loss. 5. Availability of water. When there is adequate amount of water in the soil, water is absorbed and conducted to all the cells. The mesophyll cells in the leaves become moist, thus more water will diffuse into the intercellular spaces, increasing the diffusion gradient. More water is lost to the atmosphere through transpiration. Forces involved in water movement in plants. Transpiration pull. Process by which water moves up the xylem due to evaporation of water in the leaf. It enables a stream of water to move from the roots up the leaves. Energy from the sun causes evaporation of water, increasing the diffusion gradient between the atmosphere and the mesophyll cells, which leads to water vapor diffusing into the atmosphere. The mesophyll cells draw water from the xylem. The water from the xylem is replaced by a continuous column of water known as transpiration stream moving up the roots. Cohesion and adhesion. Water molecules attract one another in such a way that they always stick together. The forces that keep them together are referred to as cohesion force. Also, water molecules are attracted to the walls of the container in which the water is contained by a force referred to as adhesion force. The cohesive and adhesive forces in very thin columns can be very high and not easily broken. These forces maintain a continuous and an uninterrupted water column in the xylem vessels up the trees. Capillarity. It's the tendency of water to rise in very narrow tubes. The lumen of xylem tracheids and vessels is very narrow, and this enables water to rise by capillarity. Root pressure. It's the force that pushes water absorbed from the soil to move up the stem from the root. The energy used to develop root pressure originates from the endodermal cells. Cells of endodermis actively secrete mineral salts into the xylem. The osmotic pressure of the xylem content is increased, thereby encouraging water movement. When the stem of a plant is cut, water oozes out from the cut stem. Root pressure can only raise water to a height of about 1 meter, hence if a plant is growing in soil with little water, the maximum height that the root pressure will raise water will be less than 1 meter. Translocation. It's the movement of manufactured food substances from where they are manufactured in the leaves to the rest of the plant. Structure and function of phloem. Phloem tissue is made up of sieve tubes and companion cells. Sieve tube. It's long with perforated end walls which are called sieve plates. Cytoplasmic strands. Filaments run through sieve plates connecting adjacent cells. At maturing sieve tube cells lack nuclei and ribosome. Mature sieve tube cells have few mitochondria. Companion cells. These cells have dense cytoplasm and a prominent nucleus and other cell organelles. Companion cell generate the energy needed in the sieve elements because it has mitochondria. Plasmodesmata. These are passages found on the lateral walls. Substances move through them from the companion cells to the sieve tube cells. Function of phloem. Materials move from one sieve tube element to another through the sieve pores in the sieve plates between adjacent elements. These materials are transported in solution form in the cytoplasm of the sieve elements. Materials translocated. The organic products translocated are sugar, amino acids, and vitamins. They are translocated to growing and developing regions of the plants, such as young shoots, leaves, flowers, fruits, and roots. Storage organs or tissues such as tubers, corms, bulbs, rhizomes, and seeds. Secretory organs such as nectar glands in some insect pollinated plants, e.g., bananas. Transport in animals. Circulatory system. A circulatory system transports the substances and maintains a steep concentration gradient at the surfaces where diffusion takes place. It's made up of a fluid, a pumping organ, and vessels. There are two types of circulatory system: open and closed circulatory systems. Open circulatory system. The transport fluid is contained in the general body cavity, colon, sinuses. This type of system is common in invertebrates, especially arthropods. The transporting fluid in the body cavity is known as hemocoel. Cavities are free spaces between the body wall and organs. The fluid in the cavities is in contact with body tissues. The fluid distributes oxygen, nutrients, and hormones to tissues while removing CO2 and nitrogenous wastes from the tissues. Closed circulatory system. The transporting fluid, blood, is conveyed in special tubes referred to as blood vessels. Comparison between open and closed circulatory system. Open, closed. Blood flows under low pressure, blood flows under high pressure. Blood circulates over a short distance at a slower rate. Blood circulates over a long distance at a faster rate. Fluid is not involved in the transport of O2 and CO2. Blood transports O2 and CO2. Is less efficient at supplying tissues and organs with nutrients and removing nitrogenous wastes. More efficient at supplying O2 and nutrients to the tissues. Organisms with open circulatory systems are generally less active. Animals with closed circulatory systems are more active. Transport in insects. In a cockroach, there is a tubular heart just above the alimentary canal. The heart has 13 chambers, 3 in the thorax and 10 in the abdominal segments. The anterior segment is joined to the aorta that empties the blood into sinuses of the head. Each chamber contains a pair of valves at the anterior part which prevent backflow of the blood. Each chamber has a pair of lateral openings called ostia which are closed by valves. The valves allow blood to flow into the heart through the ostia but not out of it. Mammalian circulatory system. Structure and function of the heart, arteries, veins, and capillaries. Mammals have a closed circulatory system where a powerful muscular heart pumps blood into the arteries. The arteries divide into even much smaller vessels called arterioles, which in turn divide into even much smaller vessels called capillaries. Capillaries spread out in a network fashion in the tissues. The capillaries eventually reunite to form venules that in turn form larger vessels called veins. Veins take blood back to the heart. Single circulatory system. This is where the blood flows only once through the heart for every complete circuit, hence the heart has only one atrium, a ventricle, e.g. fish. Double circulatory system. Blood flows into the heart twice for every complete circulation, i.e. blood from the body tissues is pumped to the lungs and then back to the heart. This is called pulmonary circulation. From the heart, blood is then pumped to the rest of the body organs. This is called systemic circulation. The double circulatory system is found in birds, mammals, and also crocodile, reptile. The other reptiles and amphibians have double circulatory system, but the ventricle is not fully divided into the left and right ventricles. Therefore, efficiency of gaseous exchange is not fully realized due to mixing of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. Structure and function of the heart. External structure of the heart. The mammalian heart is broad at the anterior and narrower at the posterior end. It's made up of 2 auricles, left and right, and 2 ventricles, left and right. The coronary artery which branches from the aorta supplies O2 and nutrients to the heart tissues. The 2 coronary veins transport CO2 and the metabolic wastes away from the heart. The heart is covered by a translucent membrane known as the pericardium. Pericardium prevents the heart from being overstretched as it pumps blood. It secretes pericardial fluid which reduces friction between the heart and the adjacent tissues when the heart beats. At the anterior end of the heart are vessels, i.e. aorta and pulmonary artery, which take blood away from the heart, and vena cava and pulmonary vein which return blood to the heart from the rest of the body. Internal structure of the heart. The heart is a muscular organ about the size of the fist. It lies inside the chest cavity between 2 lungs. Internally, the heart is surrounded by a tough membrane called pericardium which covers and protects it. It's divided into two sides, i.e., the left and the right sides, which are completely separated by a wall called septum. Septum prevents the blood on the right side mixing with that on the left side. Each side consists of a small upper chamber called atrium, plural atria, and a larger lower chamber called ventricle. This makes the mammalian heart a four-chambered organ. The atria are also called auricles and are thin-walled and receive blood into the heart which they pump into the ventricles. Ventricles are thick-walled and pump blood out of the heart. The heart is made of special muscles called cardiac muscles. This muscle is special in two ways. It can contract continuously without fatigue. The heart can beat for a lifetime without taking a rest. Cardiac muscle is also myogenic, i.e., its contractions are started by the muscle itself and not by nerves, as the case with other muscle tissue in the body. Four flap-like valves control the direction of blood flow inside the heart. Two of these valves are called atrioventricular, which allows the blood to flow only from the atria to the ventricles. The one found in the right side of the heart is called tricuspid valve because it has three flaps. In the left side of the heart is the bicuspid valve because it has two flaps. It is also called mitral valve. The other two valves found in the heart are the semi-lunar valves. They are found at the base of the aorta and pulmonary artery. When open, they allow blood to move from the ventricles into the arteries and away from the heart. NB. Valves are attached to the walls of the ventricle by valve tendons or tendinous cords, chordae tendineae. The tendons allow the valves to open but prevent inversion of the flaps of the valves when blood attempts to flow back. The wall of the left ventricle has thicker walls muscles than that of the right ventricle because the left ventricle pumps blood a further distance to all parts of the body while the right ventricle pumps the blood to the lungs. Circulation of blood in the heart. The right atrium receives blood coming from the body tissues through the vena cava. This blood has very little oxygen dissolved in it, hence it is described as deoxygenated blood. It is rich in CO2 and appears dull red in color. The right atrium then pumps the blood into the right ventricle via the tricuspid valve. When full, the right ventricle pumps blood into the pulmonary artery. Semi-lunar valves at the base of pulmonary artery prevent backflow into the right ventricle. At the same time, tricuspid valve prevents any backflow into right atrium. Tendons, heart strings, hold the valve in a closed position, preventing them from turning into the atrium. The pulmonary artery carries the blood into the lungs where it picks up O2 and gives up CO2. It is now said to be oxygenated and appears bright red in color. It goes to the left atrium of the heart via the pulmonary vein. This portion of the circulatory system that sends the blood to the lungs from the heart and back is called the pulmonary circulation. The left atrium pumps blood into the left ventricle via the bicuspid valve. The left ventricle pumps blood to all parts of the body except the lungs. This blood leaves the left ventricle through the aorta. Semi-lunar valves that open into the aorta prevent backflow of blood. The left ventricle walls are much thicker than the right ventricle walls in order to develop a high enough pressure to pump blood to all parts of the body. The circulation of the blood from the heart to the tissues and back is called systemic circulation. The mammalian heart therefore acts as a double pump. The left side sends blood rich in O2 to the rest of the body and the right side sends blood poor in oxygen to the lungs. The heart tissue itself receives food, nutrients and O2 via a vessel known as coronary artery, which branches from the aorta and spreads through the heart muscle. The function of the heart is to receive and pump blood. The heart receives blood when its muscle relax and it pumps the blood when the muscles contract. Adaptations of mammalian heart are its functions. It has valves which open to allow blood to flow in one direction and close when blood tries to flow back. It has muscular walls which contract to pump blood and ensure its continuous flow. It has a septum which separates oxygenated from deoxygenated blood. It has an inbuilt system that controls contraction and relaxation of the muscles. It has four chambers which store blood briefly before it is pumped to the rest of the body. Its muscles contract and relax continuously without fatigue. The heartbeat. The heartbeat can be felt as a pulse in various parts of the body where an artery is close to the skin surface, such as wrist. A pulse is a series of waves of dilation that pass along the arteries caused by the pressure of the blood pumped from the heart through contractions of the left ventricle. A complete cycle of a heartbeat takes less than 1 second. The human heart beats at about 70 to 75 times per minute when one is at rest. The heartbeat can increase up to 200 times per minute during exercise, fever, emotional disturbances, fear. An increased heartbeat circulates blood with oxygen and glucose needed to produce energy for the vigorous activity in the muscle tissues faster and takes away carbon dioxide and other wastes away. Control of heartbeat. Heartbeat is started by collection of cells in the wall of the right atrium called pacemaker, sinoatrial node, SAN. It is controlled by nerve messages which come from a part of the brain called medulla oblongata. The heart will continue to beat even if the nerves, vagus nerve, from the brain are cut, but it will only beat at one rate. Nerve impulses from the brain are needed to change the rate of heartbeat. NB. Individuals who have a heartbeat which is too slow or faster can have it regulated by the fitting of an artificial pacemaker which takes over from normal pacemaker. One heartbeat consists of a systole and diastole phase, i.e. diastole, relaxation. It refers to the phase when the ventricles relax in order to allow blood to flow in. During this phase, the ventricular volume increases and the pressure decreases. When the right atrium contracts, the tricuspid valve opens to allow deoxygenated blood to flow into the right ventricle. At the same time, the left atrium contracts and the bicuspid valve opens to allow oxygenated blood to flow into the left ventricle. The semi-lunar valves close, preventing blood from flowing back into the relaxed ventricles. Systole, contraction. It refers to the phase when the ventricles contract to force the blood into the arteries while atria are relaxed. When the left ventricle muscles contract, the bicuspid valves close to prevent blood from flowing back into the relaxed atria. The volume of the ventricles decreases while the pressure increases, forcing blood to flow out of the heart. Deoxygenated blood flows through the semi-lunar valve through the pulmonary artery to the lungs, while oxygenated blood flows through the semi-lunar of the aorta and into the tissues of the body. The sphygmomanometer is used for measuring blood pressure. Blood pressure is obtained by placing systolic pressure of the left ventricle over the diastolic pressure of the left ventricle, i.e. average human blood pressure equals 120 mm Hg, systole. 80 mm Hg, diastolic. Blood vessels. The mammalian blood vessels are arteries, veins and capillaries. The walls of veins and arteries consist of the following three layers. Inner lining of a single layer of epithelial cells called endothelium. Middle layer of smooth muscles and elastic fibers. It's this layer that brings about dilation and constrictions of blood vessels. Outer layer made up of fibrous connective tissue. Arteries. They take blood from the heart to the body tissues and organs. Due to the pumping action of the heart, blood from the heart enters the arteries at high pressure. Properties of arteries. Thick muscular walls to withstand and maintain higher pressure of blood. An outer fibrous coat for strength and protection. A thick layer of muscle and elastic fibers which contract and relax to adjust the diameter as blood flows through them. Arteries have an inner lining of cells known as an endothelium. A narrow lumen to maintain the pressure of blood inside them. Most arteries are located deep within our bodies for protection against injury. The size of the lumen in arteries can be adjusted by nerve control of muscles in their walls, e.g., the amount of blood passing through the arteries can be adjusted during exercise so that more blood flows to the legs and less blood to small intestines. This ensures that blood is properly utilized by only the parts of the body that need it most. Pumping of the blood can be felt on an artery if pressure is put on it with a finger. This pressure makes blood to flow in only one direction. When the ventricles contract, the muscular layer of arteries stretch to reduce resistance to blood flow. When the ventricles relax, the muscular layer of arteries contract, compressing the blood and forcing it flow forward in one direction. All arteries carry oxygenated blood except the pulmonary artery, which carries deoxygenated blood. Arteries branch out to form narrower vessels called arterioles, which branch further within the tissues into finer vessels called capillaries. Some arteries are specialized to perform certain functions, e.g., arteries of the lungs have thin walls due to lower pressure in pulmonary circulation. Aorta and pulmonary arteries have cardiac muscles extending to their bases. With age, arteries change in structure. In old age, elastic fibers have a regular thickening. Fat is deposited between the cells. Calcification occurs between arterial walls, thus making the walls brittle. Veins. They carry blood under low pressure from the tissues towards the heart. They have thin walls which are composed of a thin outer fibrous coat, a thin middle layer of muscle and elastic fibers, and an inner layer of cells, endothelium. They have pocket valves at intervals in their walls which allow blood to flow in one direction towards the heart. They carry deoxygenated blood except the pulmonary vein, which carries oxygenated blood. Portal veins have capillaries at both ends. They are unique veins that carry blood from one organ to another, i.e., hepatic portal vein, which carries blood from the small intestine to the liver. Most veins are found between the skeletal muscles and may be visible. The skeletal muscles contract, squeezing veins and forcing blood to flow towards the heart. When breathing in, the pressure in the chest cavity reduces. The volume of the heart increases and the blood in the veins is sucked up towards the heart. Valves are found in the heart, at the junction of major arteries and the heart, and also in the veins. The veins of the lower limbs have more valves. Open valves allow blood to flow in one direction only. Closed valves prevent the backflow of blood. Structural differences between arteries and veins. Arteries. Veins have thick muscular walls, have thin and less muscular walls. Have no valves except pulmonary artery valve present at intervals throughout their length. Have narrow lumen, have wide lumen. Functional differences. Arteries, veins transport blood away from the heart. Carry blood towards the heart. Carry oxygenated blood except pulmonary artery. Carry deoxygenated blood except pulmonary vein. Blood flows rapidly at high pressure. Blood flows slowly at low pressure. Blood flows in pulses. Blood flows smoothly. Blood pressure in the arteries is greater than in veins for the following reasons. Arteries receive blood directly from the heart pumped under high pressure. Have relatively narrower lumen, which maintains high pressure. Have thick muscular wall, which resists and generates pressure. Veins receives blood whose pressure has been reduced by capillary resistance. Have relatively wider lumen, which reduces pressure. Have thin, less muscular wall, which reduces pressure. Capillaries. They are narrow blood vessels whose walls are one cell thick. Capillaries have certain characteristics which make them a region suitable for exchange of substances between blood and the tissues. Characteristics of capillaries. They are numerous in number to increase their surface area for exchange of materials. Have thin walls, one cell thick, to allow rapid exchange of substances. They form a dense network in all the tissues in the body. This creates a large surface area over which the exchange takes place. They are narrow T for high pressure buildup within them. This ensures faster movement of substances. Have sphincter muscles at the arterioles end, which enables regulation of blood flow. The intensity of metabolism determines the density of capillary network in the tissues and organs, e.g., there is dense network of blood capillaries in the lungs, liver, kidney, skeletal muscles, etc. The walls of the capillaries are said to be permeable, i.e., allow the passage of molecules through them. A fluid is formed which is referred to as tissue fluid. The cells obtain their requirements through diffusion from the tissue fluid, e.g., water, glucose, mineral salts, and hormones. The cells are bathed by the tissue fluid and they release waste products into the tissue fluid, e.g., nitrogenous waste, mineral salts, CO2, and heat. Capillaries unite to form venules, which unite further to form veins. Diseases and defects of the circulatory system. Thrombosis, varicose veins, arteriosclerosis, and how to control them. Arteriosclerosis, atheroma. This is the hardening of the arteries. As the arteries age, the body reacts by depositing cholesterol and calcium in their walls. This causes them to thicken and harden and to become less flexible or less elastic, i.e., they become sclerotic. This forces the heart to work harder in order to pump blood efficiently throughout the body. It also causes an increase in the blood pressure. High blood pressure can lead to a stroke or a heart attack. Prevention. Exercises. Avoid alcohol and smoking. Avoid fatty foods. Treatment. Take medication that lowers blood pressure. Coronary thrombosis. Thrombosis is the formation of blood clots in the blood vessels. Coronary thrombosis refers to the clotting of blood in a coronary artery resulting in a heart attack. Coronary arteries supply the heart muscles with oxygen and nutrients. When a clot blocks blood from reaching the tissues of the heart, the tissues experience shortage of oxygen and nutrients supply. CO2 and nitrogenous wastes are not efficiently removed. This results in heart attack. Symptoms. Sharp pains, especially on the left side of the chest. Difficulty in breathing. Irregular heartbeats and swelling of the feet. Edema. Cardiac cells die, leading to heart failure and death. Prevented in the same way as arteriosclerosis. Treatment. Take medication to prevent blood clot formation. Cerebral thrombosis, stroke. It occurs when a blood clot is formed in the vessels of the brain. A stroke is caused by high blood pressure in the capillaries and arteries of the brain. Arteries supplying blood to the brain have thinner walls, and the high blood pressure can burst the capillaries serving the brain tissues. The brain cells in the affected area die. Some parts of the body, especially the left side, may be paralyzed. Prevented same way as arteriosclerosis. Atherosclerosis. It's a condition similar to arteriosclerosis, but it is caused when cholesterol, fat and calcium are deposited along the inner walls of the arteries. This reduces the diameter of their lumen and causes high blood pressure as the heart is forced to pump harder. Factors that increases risk of atherosclerosis. High level of blood cholesterol. Smoking. Obesity. Diabetes. Sedentary lifestyle which does not involve much physical activity. Varicose veins. It refers to the prominently swollen veins which may appear below the knees or at the back of the legs. This condition is brought about by failure of some valves in veins to function. Blood accumulates in the veins. Some pregnant women develop this condition, albeit temporarily. Also common in men soldiers who carry out parade drills. Varicose veins can be caused by standing or sitting for a long time. To prevent varicose veins, shift your weight from one leg to another and stretch your limbs. Treatment. Wear special firm stockings every morning before getting out of bed. Congenital heart defects. At birth, the blood circulatory systems of the mother and the fetus become independent. The pulmonary artery takes very little blood to the lungs of the fetus because they are not used for gaseous exchange. Blood flows between the right and left auricle through an opening in the wall between the two auricles called foramen ovale. The passage normally seals after birth. When it fails to seal, lungs are denied adequate blood and gaseous exchange is not efficient. Blood transports less oxygen and removes less CO2 from the tissues. The baby turns dark and may die. This condition can be surgically corrected. Also, when the valves within the heart fail to close adequately, the results are backflow of blood. The condition is said to be a murmur of the heart. It's diagnosed by the sounds of the heart as the valves close. This condition can be corrected surgically. Also, the connecting vessel between the pulmonary artery and aorta, ductus arteriosus, may not be sealed. The vessel normally seals at birth. Blood flow to the lungs is cut off and enters the aorta, hence blood flow to the lungs is inadequate. Gaseous exchange is impaired and tissues lack enough oxygen. The baby may turn dark. This condition can be corrected surgical. Hypertension, high blood pressure. Normal blood pressure varies between 90/60ths and 140/90ths of a millimeter of mercury. It is caused by heavy drinking, smoking, taking large quantities of salt in the food, general body stress. The heart of a hypertensive person is overworked and the person is prone to heart failure. Hypertension may lead to bursting of arteries and capillaries. If the blood vessels in the brain burst, A stroke results and brain cells die in the affected area. Paralysis for some parts of the body usually accompanies stroke. This disorder is more common in individuals aged over 40 years. Control. Having regular exercises. Intake of less salt. Avoiding excessive drinking of alcohol. Avoid smoking. Avoiding general body stress. The structure and functions of blood. Composition of blood. Blood is liquid which transports materials in mammals. It has three major functions, i.e., a medium of transport of materials to and from other tissues. Regulation of body temperature. Protection against disease germs. Mammalian blood forms up to 10% of the body weight. An average human adult has 5 to 6 liters of blood in the body. Composition of blood. Blood is composed of cellular components which form 45%, i.e., red blood cells, erythrocytes, white blood cells, leukocytes, blood platelets, thrombocytes. Functions of blood plasma. Plasma makes up about 55% of the total volume of blood. It's a pale yellow fluid. 90% of blood plasma is made up of water and the other remaining 10% consists of a variety of substances that are dissolved in the water. These substances are food substances, e.g., glucose, amino acids, and fatty acids. Waste substances like CO2 and urea. Hormones like adrenaline and insulin. Enzymes and antibodies. Blood plasma without fibrinogen is called serum. Functions of blood plasma. Transport red blood cells which contain oxyhemoglobin to the tissues, hence facilitate transport of O2. Transports food nutrients from the alimentary canal to the liver and other tissues. Transports metabolic wastes such as CO2. Transports hormones to target organs. Transports small amounts of CO2 in the form of carbonic acid or bicarbonate to the lungs. Transports mineral ions or salts such as chlorides. Transports antigens and antibodies to the site where they are required. Regulation of body temperature by distributing heat generated in the liver to other parts of the body. The structure and functions of red blood cells and white blood. Red blood cells, erythrocytes. They are biconcave in shape, i.e., thinner in the center than around the edge. Adaptations of red blood cells to their function. They have a biconcave shape to increase the surface area over which O2 and CO2 diffuse. Absence of nucleus increases the space in which hemoglobin is packed. Has hemoglobin which has a high affinity for oxygen. They are small in size, hence have a large surface area to volume ratio for the diffusion of oxygen. The small size enables them to squeeze through the narrow capillaries. They are pliable, which enables them to move through capillaries. Have enzyme carbonic anhydrase, which enables them to transport carbon IV oxide. Have thin plasma membrane, which allows rapid diffusion of gases. Red blood cells are produced in the bone marrow of ribs, sternum, and vertebrae. In an embryo, RBC are produced in the liver and the spleen. Since the mature RBC lack a nucleus and other cell organelles such as mitochondria, they have a short lifespan. They survive for about 100 to 120 days. Old blood cells are destroyed in the liver and spleen. The iron component of hemoglobin is released for the formation of new red blood cells. There are about 5 million red blood cells in every cubic millimeter, mm3, of human blood. However, the number of red blood cells varies depending on any of the following factors. Altitude. The higher the altitude, the more there will be. State of health of a person. People with severe anemia or malaria have much fewer red blood cells in their blood. Functions of red blood cells. Transport of oxygen. This is the main function of red blood cells. They transport O2 from the lungs to the body tissues. The hemoglobin found in these cells readily combines with O2 when the blood passes through the lungs to form oxyhemoglobin. When blood reaches a region with low oxygen levels, like in the tissues, the oxyhemoglobin readily gives up the oxygen it was carrying. It then reverts back to hemoglobin. The cells take up the oxygen while hemoglobin is free to be used again to carry more oxygen, i.e., hemoglobin plus oxygen. Lungs. Oxyhemoglobin. Under low oxygen concentration, e.g., in high altitude areas, the bone marrow produces more RBC. When one moves from a low to a high altitude area, more RBC are manufactured to increase the oxygen carrying capacity of blood. In this way, one becomes acclimatized to the high altitude. E.g., Kenyan athletes train in high altitude areas like Nyahururu and Eldoret to increase the O2 carrying capacity by increasing the number of their RBC. Fetal hemoglobin. It's a pigment found in fetus. It has a high affinity for O2 than the mother's hemoglobin. This enables the fetus hemoglobin to obtain enough O2 from the mother's blood even at low O2 concentration. After birth, RBC containing fetal hemoglobin are destroyed in large numbers. The large number of RBC destroyed causes a lot of pigment in the blood, hence the baby may be slightly yellow, jaundice due to the pigment. This occurs in the first 2 weeks of birth. Myoglobin. It is a pigment found in the muscles and it has high affinity for O2 than hemoglobin. Thus, oxyhemoglobin readily releases the O2 to myoglobin, which then releases O2 to the cells in muscles. Hemoglobin can combine even more readily with carbon E-oxide gas than with O2 to form carboxyhemoglobin. However, carboxyhemoglobin does not split to release hemoglobin. This prevents adequate O2 from being supplied. This makes carbon E-oxide a dangerous gas because a person who has inhaled even small quantity of it, especially in a room with poor ventilation, can die of suffocation. Sources of carbon E-oxide include burning charcoal stoves, Kcse, exhaust fumes from vehicles, transport of carbon IV oxide, CO2. About 95% of CO2 is transported by RBC. Most of the CO2 from the tissues enter the RBC, where an enzyme called carbonic anhydrase speeds up the dissolving of CO2 to form carbonic acid. This acid dissociates to form hydrogen ions, H+, and hydrogen carbonate, HCO3, ions. Colorado 2 plus H2O carbonic 2CO3. Anhydrase, carbonic acid. The hydrogen carbonate ions leave the RBC and enter the plasma, where they are eventually transported to lungs. In the lungs, hydrogen carbonate ions are converted back to CO2, which is released to the air when breathing out. White blood cells, leukocytes. They are larger than RBC, colorless, and are fewer than in number. There are about 6,000 per cc of blood. This number increases during infections. They have a nucleus but reduce in the case of HIV infection. They are formed in the bone marrow of long bones and lymph nodes. Their function is to protect the body against pathogenic microorganisms such as bacteria, protozoa, viruses, etc. Types of white blood cells. Granulocyte. They are also called phagocytes or polymorphs. They have a large lobed nucleus and cytoplasm containing granules, hence the name granulocytes. They can change their shapes as they actively seek and engulf diseases, causing germs in a process called phagocytosis, hence the name phagocytes. Some white blood cells may die in the course of phagocytosis. The dead phagocytes, together with dead microorganisms and damaged tissues, form pus. They can squeeze through capillaries walls in order to reach infected tissues. They are made in the bone marrow. Agranulocytes. They have large rounded nuclei. Their cytoplasm is also non-granular. Types of agranulocytes. Monocytes. They are formed in the bone marrow. They destroy microorganisms such as bacteria by engulfing them. Lymphocytes. They are formed in the lymph nodes and produce antibodies that protect the body from infections in the following ways. Antibodies, which are antitoxic, neutralize the toxins, antigens, produced by the pathogenic organisms. Some antibodies, such as agglutinins, cause clumping together of microorganism. This stops the microorganism from multiplying and eventually they die. They are then ingested by phagocytes. Lysins destroy microorganisms by digesting their cell membrane or walls. Opsonins are antibodies which adhere to the outer surfaces of microorganisms, thus making it easy for phagocytes to ingest them. Opsonins are only produced during infection. Mechanism of blood clotting and its importance. Platelets, thrombocytes. They are very small and have no nucleus. They are fragments of RBC and they are made in the bone marrow. There are approximately 250,000 platelets per cubic millimeter of blood. They live for about 7 days. Platelets produce an enzyme known as thromboplastin which plays a key role in blood clotting.